I'd like to welcome everyone along to the Skills for Farming Employers Apprenticeship webinar, and we're delighted with the number who have joined us for the event today. Lantra have organised this webinar on behalf of the Skills for Farming group. The subject of apprenticeships has been discussed on many occasions, and with an ageing workforce, bringing new blood into the sector is seen as extremely important, and our apprenticeship is a way of doing this. It has, however, been highlighted that many farmers don't necessarily know what is involved in taking on an apprentice, and that we need to do more to raise awareness, especially the benefits. Some examples of questions are: how do I go about it? What kind of support do I get? Is there any funding to help out? And this webinar should answer a lot of these questions and more. And by the end of it, hopefully, you are more informed and an apprenticeship is something you might consider and want to progress. For those of you who are not aware of the Skills for Farming group, the group consists of a variety of organisations, training providers and industry bodies, and we look at skills development within the agricultural sector. This includes promoting careers, looking at skills gaps and how these can be addressed, upskilling, and also new innovative practices. These are just a few of the areas. Now, what is an apprenticeship? Now, this combines a real job with a structured programme of learning and leads to an industry recognised qualification. You can recruit an apprentice, or you can put one of your existing employees through the apprenticeship. They're normally aged about 16 or over and will be employed in their role either full or part-time. Any training that is required is agreed between the employer and the training provider, and it's done to fit the needs of the business. And we have Mary from Borders College speaking later on how the training provider supports the employer and the apprentice. The apprenticeships which have the most success are those where the apprentice is integrated into the existing team, well mentored and provided with a broad range of experience. Now, that mentor can be the farmer themselves, or it can be one of the existing workforce. Now, James Orr, who's going to share his experience shortly, has highlighted that his workforce took his first apprentice, Erica, under their wing, and they all helped mentor her through her apprenticeship. There are various types of apprenticeship. We've got a pre-apprenticeship. This is where there's an initial 3-week programme which includes training, which is followed by a paid 6-month work placement. The pre-apprentice is employed by a local machinery ring and hosted by a mentor business. This is mainly for young people aged 16 to 24. Now, if you're interested in being a mentor business, if you want to get in touch with us afterwards, we'll put you in touch with the machinery ring local to you who deliver it. Then we've got a modern apprenticeship. It takes between 1 and 3 years to complete, and that really depends on the circumstances of the apprentice and the needs of the employer. The apprentice could be working part or full-time, which may affect this. Now, this can be tailored to specific roles, making it flexible to meet the needs of a particular farm. We've got industry apprenticeships. We have a dairy farming apprenticeship, which is really the agricultural modern apprenticeship with specific added elements, particular to the dairy industry. And then we have a technical apprenticeship. This is not yet available from training providers, but we're hoping will be soon. And this offers the individual the opportunity to progress to management level through work-based learning. Now, we developed a toolkit for agricultural employers, and we will send the link with this in the follow-up email after the webinar. It's available online, but if you would prefer a hard copy, just let us know and we'll post one out to you. Now, we're going to start off by hearing from a couple of employers and apprentices about their own experiences. We've got James Orr. Now, James farms at Knowlton-Glebo near Cooper in Fife, and his apprentice Ewan. And then we'll hear from Daye Tucker and Lawrence. Daye farms a grass stock farm in West Stirlingshire, and Lawrence was her apprentice and now works with Daye. Now, before I hand you over to James, I wanted to highlight something that Lawrence said in a video he made recently to promote careers in agriculture to schools. Now, Lawrence is a new entrant to farming. He doesn't come from a farming background. He's also one of the Lantra industry champions. And I'm going to quote what he said. He said, "Agriculture is phenomenal. It is the industry that makes sure you can go to the shops and buy your food. A wonderful way of life, and I'd recommend it to anyone, whether from a farming background or not. And it would be great to have more Lawrences helping spread the word on what a great sector agriculture is to work in. And now I'm going to pass you over to James and Ewan to share their experience.
Oh, hi everybody. Thank you for those words of introduction, Sheena. As she said, I'm James Orr. I've got our current modern apprentice, Ewan Goodwin, sitting beside me here. This morning, I'd just like to share our experience of the apprenticeship. For me, it started probably nearly 4 years ago with a conversation with Sheena at the Highland Show. We were light on staff. I didn't really know what I was looking for. Was a little bit, unaware of apprenticeships at the time. Had a few reservations. What was the cost going to be? What was the time going to be involved to look after an apprentice? What's the support that's out there? And also there's always the question of the uncertainty of the industry. Can we really carry the cost, and can we really spend time on an individual? That conversation with Sheena led us to a young lady by the name of Erica Taylor, who came and saw us. She was 19 at the time. She had, not from a farming background at all, but she had done 3 lambings at another farm over the previous 3 years. And I could see the potential in this girl, but I had a fairly serious problem because we do annual reviews with our staff every year. And on the previous annual review, every one of our members of staff said, we need extra help, but we need somebody that knows what they're doing. And here was I sitting with a 19-year-old girl in front of me with limited experience. So I knew that I had to bring the team on board. And what I actually did was I took Erica around the team one by one, let them all interview her and let them see what the potential could be. And from that day onwards, all the guys were very much on with the challenge, and Erica was very much integrated in the team. As time went on, we've learned a lot from the apprenticeship scheme, how it works. There's some great benefits in that. Traditionally, we always thought that much of the training would be provided away from the farm. It would be, usually they were always lost to training when you needed them. And that is certainly not the case with the modern apprenticeship. 99% of the training happens on farm, either by myself, the employer, or any one of our team. And there's a very limited time that they're away getting statutory training, which, by the way, there's a budget for that, and it's provided. So Erica, over her period with us, did our forklift courses, her PA 1 and 2 courses, all funded by the apprenticeship. Sheena touched a little bit on mentoring and how important that is. I don't really want to touch on that subject because I'd like to hand over to Ewan to explain a little bit about that. One of the things that we've benefited from by having Erica here and doing the apprenticeship is that it's actually raised our profile. And it's actually, we've had a number of people actually coming to us wanting to do apprenticeships. And the gentleman on my right here is a prime example of that. He came along, started off helping us out just over the summer holidays, found out what the industry was all about, and decided to take the plunge and do a modern apprenticeship as well. So actually, by bringing an apprentice into your business, actually can drive more people to you and build your team and strengthen your team. But I'd like to really hand over to Ewan now and let Ewan talk a little bit about his experience, because I think probably the best advertisement for an apprenticeship is actually an apprentice himself. So I'm going to just hand over to Ewan for a little bit, let him talk a little bit, and then pick up after him.
Yep, so hello everybody, my name's Ewan. I have been working for James since March now. and I started my apprenticeship in August. So far, I've learned so much, and I've got so much more to learn. There's many highs in the industry and lows. The lows are quite special because you learn from them. Find that you learn a lot from your mistakes. Every day is different. I wake up in the morning, looking forward to going to work. I go home, I tell my parents about my day. It always brings a smile to my face. I'm now finding that I'm sharing my knowledge to other people that have not got such an idea in agriculture. Find that I've grown in confidence and I'm more aware of how to undertake tasks, and more aware of how my tasks can affect others. My Lantra work at home, my homework, it's good. It's expanding my knowledge about agriculture and finding that it's a different way of looking at stuff. James and the farm workers are really good at explaining stuff, but this is a different way of looking at it. Whilst doing my college work at home, we came across something called a Gantt chart. Me having no idea what a Gantt chart was, I came to James one afternoon and we had a sit down and talk about a Gantt chart. James, not knowing much about it either, ends up going to Google, and it's basically, if anybody doesn't know, it's a chart so you can help plan out your year and about your man hours and jobs being able to do, stuff like that. So we're now using that this year to try and plan our year to make ourselves more efficient and to see how many workers we need on the farm. Mentoring, I know that Sheena has mentioned it. I find that it's a very, very, very key point in apprenticeships. I find that my co-workers, they love it. They recommended this apprenticeship to me after Erica finished hers. They were all like, let's go for it, this is brilliant. I find that they take pride in showing me and explaining me how to do tasks. If it's their task and James is like, right, you can go and sit next to them for a day and get a little shot and stuff like that, they find like massive pride in them for doing that. In that mentoring, if they're positive, I'm positive. If they're upbeat about a job, then I'm upbeat about a job. I find that they are definitely a role model, a very good role model, and yeah, which helps a lot. Because of my mentoring, I find that I'm working harder for them to impress them. If I get given a job that they've shown me how to do, I want to work as hard as I can to make that job as good as I can. You want to excel for your mentor. Overall, so far, I've had a really good experience with Lantra. I'm only halfway through it, so I'll get back to you at the end how it goes. But I've learned so much, and my goal is to learn so much more in the future. Myself being a farm manager, so that's what I'm aiming for. Also want to be able to help start sharing my knowledge to other people, other apprentices like me, just so the way that my team has helped me. James.
Okay. Well, you know, we are so lucky to have this young man in our business. He's a great advert for apprenticeships. You know, he talks with passion about working in this industry, and that is so important. And it's for us as a business, it's lovely to have that passion and enthusiasm and running alongside us. And by having that, it's allowed us to grasp other opportunities that perhaps we wouldn't be able to take if we didn't have that. Ewan was in a meeting with me yesterday where we were talking to our cooperative that we grow our broccoli with, and we were talking about broccoli areas, and Ewan was very much up for the challenge of, you know, perhaps growing it better, growing more, and actually developing that business further. So it's that energy, it's that enthusiasm, that buzz that the apprentice brings to the business. It rubs off not just on their fellow employees, it rubs off on the business owner themselves, and I've certainly found that. I mean, we've touched on it already, and Sheena's touched on it. This thing here, Employer's Toolkit, is maybe the wrong round, I'm not sure, but a really important document to help guide you through the process of mentoring and trying to mentor well. I know we've all made mistakes, I've made mistakes, but it's lovely to have a manual like that to go back and recognize, okay, I should have handled that situation differently, I should have handled it better. So there's a massive amount of support out there to help you along the way. It's interesting actually that Ewan touched on a Gantt chart. That was one thing I also wanted to touch on, that sometimes people think that mentoring is all about passing on your knowledge to the apprentice. In my situation, it's actually brought knowledge to me, and this Gantt chart is something that we've had a big problem with over the last few years, actually having too much work to do and not enough people to do it. So we are using this Gantt chart as an idea to try and prepare and plan ahead so we don't get into that situation as much, or hopefully not at all. So by having a youngster prompting you with new ideas, new thoughts, it is very refreshing. So I'm going to pause it there and hand back to Sheena. I'm sure with some of you will have some questions and things that we haven't touched on and you're really intrigued with. Feel free to ask them later on. So I'll pass you back to Sheena.
Thanks very much, James and Ewan. I think the sector's in good hands with young people like you. And I'd now like to pass you over to Daye and Lawrence to share their experience.
Hi there, thanks Sheena. I don't know, I'll let Daye go first, I'll be a gentleman.
That shows you what a good relationship we've got. Morning everybody, it's lovely to see there's I think at least 40 people listening into this. It would be interesting to know how many of those are aspirational apprentices or aspirational farmers who are looking to take on an apprentice. Certainly a brief bit of history. Many years ago, 2006 roughly, in fact prior to that, in our local high school, we set up a rural skills project, and that was the seed corn of where we are now in terms of the variety of apprenticeships that there are facilitated by SRUC and Lantra in particular. Has been absolutely key for me managing to get Lawrence onto this apprenticeship scheme, which he has sailed through in jig time. And he's now working full-time with me. I need this because, imagine, I'm quite old and I was getting tired both mentally and physically, running this farm on my own with occasional contractor coming in at their decision of when they came in, and the challenge of not knowing whether they were coming or not coming is really getting me down in terms of mental health. So one day when I was on Twitter off and on, and I know all my farming colleagues laugh at me about this, but when you're on Twitter and you talk to all the other farmers, you get a different perspective of life. And on came this request of somebody looking for an opportunity to get work experience, and it was Lawrence. And then it came on again and again, and he said, nobody has come back to me offering me work experience. So I thought, oh, right. So I offered him work experience. He phoned up, we had a good chat, and even on that chat, we kind of clicked. And then he came out and he helped us with selecting lambs to go to Scot beef, and then he came for lambing, and we clicked even more. And yes, he was starting from nothing, but he picked things up so quickly. And then he had decided, he was originally going to go on a gamekeeping course, but decided no, it wasn't for him, apply to Oakridge for the agricultural one. So we worked together even when he was at agricultural college. Any spare moment he had, he would come out to the farm and he'd work. And it got to the stage where I said, look, Lawrence, I can't keep you here. We worked out a wage, or at least I worked out a wage and said, this is what I think I think it was £7 an hour.
I think so.
Something like that.
Generous amount.
Which was at the time quite a fair wage for somebody that didn't have the sort of experience that a lot of people had. Then Lawrence got his dogs, and I thought, oh, hang on a minute, he's probably worth a bit more because his dogs are worth a man anyway. And, you know, I have to admit he's £11 an hour, but there's lots of other ways of incentivizing Lawrence without putting his up. The main thing is that we value Lawrence and we want to keep him here. So we're now looking at partnerships, and he's got potential to build a house on the place. He's got all sorts of potential, and everything's beginning into place, and it's incredibly exciting. The other thing I want to touch on is the fact that Lantra have offered or have managed to work with Scottish Government and everything else to make this a really flexible course, which is critical, because one of the things for a farmer like myself, who's a very small farmer and has come into the industry late in 2000, and in fact didn't even have livestock until 2005 and had to operate without a single farm payment. Could we afford to have somebody like Lawrence? Well, I thought, I'm a bit of a gambler now and then, and I thought, well, let's just try it and see, without even working out how much it would cost. And I have to say that it's been worth every penny, and I think we could probably even afford now to have Lawrence full time. And still give him these incentives to stay on at the farm. But in terms of the benefit to me, it's been not just from improving our farm dramatically, improving the bottom line, helping with the technology side, which I was rubbish at. I had invested a lot of money in technology and didn't know really how to operate it. But Lawrence had all these skills at his fingertips. So he has been the one that has made all this investment actually bring a return. He's also taught me so much. I'm much more au fait with my computer than I was before. So I would say it's almost an equal share of his skills transferring to me and my skills transferring to him. So I can only say to any farmer out there who's my age, my vintage, and I'm 75, and that if you've got a small farm, it doesn't matter how small you are, you will still get something out of the right apprentice. And Lantra will make sure that you and the apprentice fit with each other.
Yeah, I think I can echo a lot of what Ewan and James and Daye has said with regards to, you know, the journey that the apprenticeship allows you to go on. You know, as they said, we met over Twitter. You know, I didn't know the messy end from one end to the other of a sheep when I first came to work for Daye. Just loads of enthusiasm, really. And you know, any success that I've got is really based on the attitude that Daye's had towards you know, teaching me and giving me opportunities. As you heard, you know, she's very forthcoming with information and showing me accounts and the books and previous history of the business and how it's developed and the shortfalls and the things that have gone wrong and the successes that she's had. And really that's kind of the crux of making it successful is exposure to everything that you wouldn't normally get without the apprenticeship. I did do my HNC, which was fantastic, through SIUC, lots of theoretical knowledge, but the apprenticeship really allows you to put all that into practice in a more controlled environment where, you know, it's firsthand. You can actually make mistakes yourself, like Ewan said. You know, you learn usually a lot more from them than you do when you do something well. So Yeah, it was fantastic. I couldn't afford to sustainably stay here without an element of an income. And again, the apprenticeship was able to justify that with the course that was going on. And obviously they fund for you to do a handful of courses, whether that's a PA certificate or a chainsaw license, trailer license, which again is a financial aid to the farm. I can do a lot more, makes my skills a lot more diverse. And as they said, you know, I could bring my IT skills to the farm, implement a lot of the technology that they had already invested in and make it a lot more efficient and actually usable, to where we're now investing in AgriWeb, a new management system for the farm. There's a lot less contractors on the farm, so the money is saved there by quite a considerable sum. And like anybody, experienced or not, you always look at something differently and your ideas are slightly different. So it's taken me a while to appreciate my value on the farm. You know, Daye has given me so much, and it's been a very steep learning curve. You know, I was really proud that, you know, again, along with Lantra, I became an industry champion, which was a huge success. And again, I only accredit that to the apprenticeship programs, the support I've had from Annabelle and Sheena and Daye. Yeah, and now I'm quite autonomous at my day-to-day. I can be out working all day without much direction and get on with tasks. And again, that's a huge credit to the structure that the apprenticeship gave. And it's whoever wants an apprentice just because they want cheap labor, it doesn't work that way. You know, the success of the apprenticeship works on a joint partnership and a level of openness and trust. And share of knowledge and experience. So I would hugely recommend it. I recommend it to anybody who asks me whether or not they want to take on an apprentice or they want to be an apprentice. It's fantastic, really good.
Thanks very much, Daye and Lawrence. What really sort of shone through there was the relationship that the two of you have with each other, and it is a true partnership. Now we're going to turn to the support that training providers offer. Now we've got Mary Thomson from Borders College, and we've also got Fiona Turnbull. Mary is going to talk about the support that training providers give to employers and apprentices, and Fiona is going to talk about the funding aspect. So I'd like to pass you over to Fiona and Mary.
Thank you, Sheena. We're just going to upload the presentation. There we go. So hi there, my name's Fiona Turnbull. I'm the contracts manager at Borders College, and as Sheena said, along with my colleague Mary Thomson, who's the curriculum and learning manager for rural skills, we're going to talk a wee bit about today about the support that we can give to employers who take on a modern apprentice. So I'll start off talking about the support and funding, and Mary will speak about the courses that we offer, what's involved, and training enhancements and benefits to the employer. So first of all, it's a great opportunity for employers to take on a modern apprentice, and when you've employed your apprentice, they are allocated a Borders College training consultant or a training consultant from your training provider. And they really are the key person. They liaise with the college, the employer, the apprentice, and to just make sure that everyone has a smooth journey for their training, and also if any issues arise, which they do, and they will be resolved fairly quickly, and so they continue with their training. Now, a lot of questions that farmers or employers do ask is, what do I have to pay the apprentice? Now, normally, you would follow the Agricultural Wages Board apprenticeship rates, and they are currently at £5.46 per hour. And there's links below which you'll be getting, can get a copy of this presentation, and there's links below for the national minimum wage as well. We do really recommend that employers treat this not as the actual wage that they give. It's sort of just a guide. We do encourage employers to pay a higher rate, really just to recognise the value of apprentice. I think we've heard that from both James and Ewan and Daye and Lawrence, you know, just how useful and, you know, beneficial apprentices are. So we do really encourage that. And the apprentice needs to be employed a minimum of 16 hours per week, just really to gain all the evidence required for the standards, etc. And because obviously we've had a really difficult year last year and it's continuing on to this year, Skills Development Scotland, they've put out an apprenticeship employer grant, which is available between now and the end of March. And it's for any employers taking on an apprentice and really to recruit an apprentice or to upskill an existing one if they take them on within the last 4 months. And they will be, well, depends if you meet the criteria, but if you meet the criteria, there's a grant of £5,000 for the age group 16 to 24 and £3,500 for the 25 plus group. And I can send details on that as well if anybody's interested on that. But it is, there's lots of other questions I'm sure you want to ask about the funding, etc. And it'll be available for questions and answers at the end. But I'll now pass you across to my colleague Mary, who will give you a bit more information on what we do as a college and a training provider. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. And Fiona's my kind of guru that I go to when I have funding questions from employers. So as Fiona said, I'm the Curriculum and Learning Manager for Rural Skills, and I oversee the skills training part of the delivery of the apprenticeships. This first slide, I think Sheena's covered this really well as a sort of pathway already in terms of the different levels of apprenticeships. And there was just really a couple of things I wanted to add, and that was to say that your training consultant or training provider or Lantra can provide you with information on the different working levels. So in training speak, we talk about the different Scottish qualifications levels, and they take into account different groups of characteristics. So we're not just looking at knowledge and understanding, we're considering general skills, core skills, practical skills. So that's something that we can help employers with what level they want to be placing apprenticeships at, an apprentice at. The other thing I was just going to say is that I thought Daye made a really good point around starting at schools level, and we have got opportunities to engage with setting up work placements at schools level and with full-time college students as well. We've been part of a programme recently called the Growing Rural Talent Programme, which has had some challenges due to COVID, but we've been getting school pupils out on extended work placements. College students also have an opportunity to go through an extended work placement. So if you're a business that's thinking about an apprenticeship, but maybe not quite at the stage where you're ready to really go for that yet, a work placement can be a really good opportunity for you to start to engage with someone that might be interested in the future. Then as apprentices move through their journey, we've been working in partnership with Borders Machinery Ring with the pre-apprenticeship. One of the things that's been really valuable as part of that programme has been the mentor training that we've supported. And that programme has mostly been school leavers aged 16. So the college role in that is to deliver, from a Borders College perspective, to deliver the certificate of work readiness. And then moving through the different levels, and at the other end of the journey, Sheena mentioned the technical apprenticeship at level 8. This is something that we're hoping to go through approval for in the near future, and we're hoping that that will happen by September 2021. It just means that if you've got an apprentice in your workplace who is performing well, who's been engaged up to maybe a level 6 apprenticeship with their subject, if you then have a need for someone to develop into more of a leadership or management role, this work-based learning option at the higher level will provide an opportunity for them to stay with you and to hopefully continue adding that value to your business. So in terms of what's involved from the college perspective when you employ an apprentice, as James has highlighted already, the key thing is that they are primarily work-based. Our model of delivery is that they do have regular college attendance, but we avoid times when there's peaks of seasonal activity. So we're not going to ask the apprentices to be coming into college during lambing time, during harvest operations, or during other peak activity times for your business. And the pattern of attendance can vary depending on the level that the apprentice is working at and the subject that they're enrolled in. And it will vary, the model will vary from one learning training provider to another as well. We usually try as a college, and this is based on apprentice feedback, our apprentices usually prefer to enrol as a little group, so they have that social structure, and our usual times for enrolment would be around October and then January, and at the moment we are working with Borders Machinery Ring to support the pre-apprentices who are just finishing their programme in progressing on to a modern apprenticeship. And I think that the benefits of them having that group enrolment are that they, you know, they might be working in a workplace, particularly if they're younger apprentices, where they're working primarily with experienced and more mature staff. Coming in as a little group allows them to have some social structure, but also to share learning. So we normally start the college day with a little bit of a reflective discussion about what everybody's been doing. They hear about what's been happening on different farm types or different business types, and that supports them in that kind of learning from each other as well, and helps the assessor that's supporting the session to identify where there might be gaps that we need to fill, you know, maybe where someone's experience, just due to the nature of the business or they're working with, where we can maybe support them with some wider skills or some additional practical training. To complete the apprenticeship successfully, there's a framework that they need to work through. We provide the support materials for that, for the assessment of that framework, but the assessor will come out to your workplace as well and assess through observation of tasks that are being carried out, through gathering information from you as the employer. So we would talk about taking a witness testimony. That's essentially the assessor talking to you about how the apprentice is doing, involving the apprentice in that conversation as well about how they feel they're doing, and finding out how we can support more if needed, or whether there are particular accredited short courses that would work best for your business. COVID has been a challenge to us all. We were really fortunate in that we got risk assessments in place fairly quickly last summer. Assessors were able to get back out again by the end of July. We have got visits on hold again at the moment, but we continue to work remotely. So through video calls, phone conversations, email contact, to continue to support both employers and apprentices through this challenging time. And we hope that we'll have everybody back in college for their college days as soon as we possibly can, as soon as government guidelines allow. But we are, I think the critical thing there is that we are still enrolling at this time. So all of the enrolment and activation process for an apprenticeship can happen despite the challenges we're facing at the moment. Our assessors provide feedback to our apprentice employers on a regular basis. That's usually after they've been in college for a day, talking about how they're progressing through their skills training units. And then our training consultant that Fiona mentioned before will complete a quarterly review to show that they're meeting their milestones as they work through the apprenticeship framework. Frequencies of assessor visits will vary depending on the subject that the apprentice is working on, but we usually estimate that we'll visit an average of 3 times a year, but we do that in discussion with you to make sure that we're coming at a time that works for you and for the apprentice as well. And of course, again, at the moment with COVID restrictions, we would only come out to visit with that pre-arranged and with you being completely happy with the COVID protocols that are in place. We talked a wee bit already about the training and enhancements, and I've already mentioned the approach we take when apprentices come into college for their day working through their units. So they have this opportunity to share experiences and reflect on their work-based learning. We keep learning materials industry relevant. There's a regular review process, and that's within the college, but also Lantra support regular review within the industry as well, with specialists within the industry involved in that process. We can deliver introductory practical skills training on a college day if that's required, and that might be things like a short introduction to welding, or to support a wee bit more tractor skills training. We recognise that most of that is happening in the workplace, but we might have some apprentices that are doing a bit more, and some that are not doing as much. And obviously there's also their accredited short course training that they have access to. We try to vary the learning opportunities. So if time allows, and if a business is in a position to release their apprentice to attend, if we are taking our full-time agriculture students to an industry event, we will also provide sort of support with transport and the opportunity for the apprentices to attend as well. And many of these events happen at times of year when there's maybe not the peaks of seasonal activity. So we still hope that if things like Scotch Sheep and Highland Show and other industry events are going ahead this year, we still hope that we will get our apprentices out there with the full-time students. Some of the visits that they did the year prior to COVID happening were things like a trip down to the llama show. We had a farm visit to a deer farm enterprise, and a good number of our apprentices were able to get away from work to attend those trips and really benefited from them. On the accredited course side of things, you'll be only too aware of the range of accredited short courses that are available. Obviously the short course that's delivered will depend on business needs. For Borders College, we put all our apprentices through an emergency first aid at work course, and then other accredited short courses will depend on the business, and you might be considering things like tractor driving, quad bikes, forklift truck, or possibly pesticides training would be the other one that is quite popular. Chainsaw courses are another one that we've got a reasonable demand for, and that's something that the training consultant can discuss with you as a business. So I think, I mean, employer benefits, really, it was so great to hear from James and Ewan and from Daye and Lawrence, who have told this story, I think, far better than I can really. But from a business performance point of view, the apprentices are getting relevant training. They can make a real and meaningful contribution to your business because that training is on the job, and they're adding to your productivity. You're gaining from, and they're gaining from the skills and experience of those that are around them. And actually, as I think James hinted at, and I think certainly as I find working with young people, I learn things from them every day as well. Well, I say from young people, actually from all the learners that I work with, and that might be career changers or young people coming into the industry for the first time. You get a motivated workforce, so you can enrol new and current employees on an apprenticeship programme. Training tends to make them more enthusiastic and I think keen to learn more and to support you in taking your business forward. They get relevant skills which would be specific to the industry, but assessors and training consultants can also support apprentices with activities that are relevant to your business. And apprenticeships are really designed around those business needs by, and mentioned already, the programme of renewal of apprenticeship frameworks. That's all supported by specialists who genuinely understand what your industry does. In terms of staff retention, you know, if you've brought somebody on and you're keen to keep them, I think that training can make staff feel valued and then more likely to stay in a position for longer. And hopefully it helps you to avoid skills shortages. You know, change and innovation now more than ever are always with us, and we're all adapting to the new times. I think Daye sort of hinted at this as well, that bringing on an apprentice, it can help that practical skills, but maybe also with computer IT skills. And Fiona, who you see in this picture, is one of our current apprentices. She has been very engaged, not just with her practical learning and skills development, but also with business management and leadership skills. So she's an apprentice who's very keen to progress onto the technical level work-based learning option as well. And as I say, I think really for me, James and Ewan and Daye and Lawrence painted that picture for us all of just the positive experience that you can have by taking on an apprentice. I'm sure there'll be questions, and Sheena will support with some question and answer now, but if you do want to know more, we'll share this presentation afterwards, and there's some useful links in there. No matter where you're based, there'll be a training provider near you, or Lantra can put you in touch with a training provider that can support you with the next steps.
Thanks very much, Mary and Fiona. So I firstly want to thank all the panellists, James and Ewan, Daye and Lawrence, and Mary and Fiona for joining us. I hope we've helped raise awareness of what apprenticeships are all about. And if you come on to hear more with maybe the potential to consider taking on an apprentice, then we've done our job. If it's answered and it's helped, you make that decision. So thank you all the speakers. Thank you for everyone who has joined us today. And if you have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to drop us an email. We'll try and answer ourselves, or we'll signpost. So thank you all again, and stay safe, everyone.